Hey everyone, welcome to the Magical Stories of Healing and Spiritual Gifts podcast. We are so excited. We have an awesome guest with us today. Allison, is it Waddell?
It is Waddell. You did it right. Good job.
Awesome. Allison Waddell, CEO of, is it Illumina, right?
Illumma.
Illumma. Incredible ketamine clinic that both Megan and I experienced ourselves. As most people out there listening know, our journey with plant medicine has been pretty epic, and we've experienced many different ones. And ketamine started to come up to Megan and I a few different places, and it just started showing up divinely. We knew nothing. We knew a little bit about it, but we knew the best way to really know something is to experience it ourselves. And we looked up and we heard incredible things about Illumma and Allison. So we connected with her clinic. We had an incredible experience, and I couldn't recommend enough. At the end of this, we're going to put links to contact her and check out her facility here in Austin. But thanks again for taking some time with me today, Allison.
Of course. Excited to be here. Always happy to expand awareness around ketamine infusion therapy. It's kind of a new/not new drug on the block, and it's transformative for many people, including myself and y'all. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it was such a unique, profound experience for us, which I'm happy to get into. But I'd love to hear kind of your story. How did you get into ketamine? When did it first come about? How did you find your way to it? And what got you the story to getting you to launching your own business and helping heal so many people now?
Yeah, very windy road, like I think most weird entrepreneur people. So I've been in the wellness industry for close to 20 years now, mostly in Austin. So I started out in physical wellness, so as a high-end personal trainer, and then I took this hilarious path that I think actually a lot of people that are in wellness long-term take. You start with the physical, because when you're 20s, you think as long as you work out, you're healthy. That's all. That's all healthy means. And if you can just look hot, I'm sure everything else will work out in your favor.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, completely hilarious. And then, you get into training and trying to help people be healthy. And then you realize, oh, nutrition is where it is. And so then I became a chef. I went to culinary school. I studied nutrition. And so then I was like, oh, well, yeah, this is it. So all you got to do is you got to eat healthy and then you got to work out and then you're good. We're fine. And then somehow, most of us in our 30s hit at least one of our first on the knees moments of going like, what is happening? And that's when the mindset piece really comes in. And then you quickly realize that none of the other stuff actually, it's all awesome and it's all very needed and all creates this holistic approach. But until you really deal with your mindset and your emotional state and your trauma and your emotional intelligence, really nothing else is going to matter, because you will always end up sabotaging yourself, or your trauma will come back up and you'll end up doing unhealthy coping mechanisms. And so then I got into life coaching and tried to kind of put all of that together. And so that's, I moved back to Austin from California after culinary school about 5 years ago, and, launched my life coaching business and kind of helped people with that piece from my lens. And then about 4.5 years ago, I met my partner, Dr. Ken Adolf, and he's a cardiac anesthesiologist. And we both were on, we're just self-development nerds, both had, trauma like most people growing up, and then had really connected both on a relationship level, on a spiritual and soul level through plant medicine and through healing ourselves. So done some really, probably the most impactful journeys of my life have been with that man, and really had seen some immense healing in ourselves and real strong connection with each other through that space. And so had just really explored psychedelics together and had known the power of it. We had both done it prior to meeting, but then had really focused on more of the therapeutic aspects of psychedelics, as opposed to the 20-year-old really fun recreational aspects, which are also awesome. But just a different lens to look at the medicine through. And so you know, we're really interested in the psychedelic space and just kind of this new wave of like, it's finally coming back, you know, MAPS, and we've always been interested in that. And then, you know, Ken has used ketamine in the operating room for 25 years. And so he uses it all the time. And then all of a sudden this research started coming up about ketamine for mental health treatment. He's like, what in the world? What is it? What do you mean? And it just happened that the first meeting of the national, it's called the ASKP. So it's the Association of Ketamine. It used to be physicians and now it's providers. And so that's the National Ketamine Organization. So their very first conference was here in Austin in 2018. And so Ken was like, I'm going to go and just see what, this is. And, you know, just see what, and he was just blown away. He was like, if this works half as well as what the studies and what these people that are currently doing it says it's doing, he's like, this is a game changer. This is going to change the whole face of mental health. And then it's going to change the face of medicine. And this is going to be our way to step into the psychedelic movement because it's already legal. It's super safe. People are used to getting it. You know, it had all these very positive things that are going to be such an entry point for people who are nervous about the other plant and psychedelic medicines. You know, this is a good starting off point for a lot of people. And so he came home and he was like, we're opening a ketamine clinic. And I said, I don't know what that means. So sure, let's try it.
Let's do it.
Yeah, and so within a month, we'd found a space, we renovated our offices, and we had opened in about 2.5 months. So we've been open for about 18 months now. We opened in February of 19, actually on my 40th birthday. And now I run the clinic from day to day. So I manage kind of the more of the business aspects. I do all of our marketing and that kind of thing. And then I use my wellness coaching lens to work with patients one-on-one, make sure, you know, like every psychedelic, ketamine is a tool. So it's all about integration and understanding what everybody's integration path looks different and trying to co-create that with our patients so that everybody's getting plugged in the right places and that they're having, you know, a really good experience. And then the other thing that we're really passionate about is just the customer care level. And so that's the other thing that has really slipped out of mental health. And I think Western medicine, and most people know it, it's like people don't, it feels like nobody cares, nobody takes the time, and they don't because it's just how we're set up right now. And so like the amazing part is to have people come in that have been in this Western medicine and mental health model, and you ask them how they are. And it's the first time somebody's asked them that. Wow. Or like, why are you depressed? Like, you've been depressed for 10 years. Has anybody ever asked you why you're struggling? And it's sad to say that's a differentiation, but it is. So wow. That's my weird long story. So
no, there's so many cool points to that. You know, that's one of the things I personally, part of our mission is to help destigmatize psychedelics. And you know, that's a battle in itself. But one of the beautiful pieces, the more we explore into the world of ketamine, you said it wonderfully. It's such an entry point because now that it's legalized, and man, Michael Zappelin, he's a filmmaker for Reality of Truth.
Oh, he's awesome.
Yeah, we did an interview with him. He literally thinks, and I'm becoming more and more of a full believer of it, ketamine itself, infusions the right way, can actually help reduce the world's suicide rate by 75%.
I mean, I'm telling you, suicidal ideation in 90% of patients is gone in an hour.
90,
I mean, it's not.
And I've been back in my past. You know, I had dealt with addiction issues and been in an outpatient program years and years ago for alcoholism. And I remember or binge drinking. I remember looking at all the facilities that were out there, and they consider successful like 10%, like 8%, 10%, 12% is like success. To hear, and that's one of the things that's so cool about your clinic. I'll never forget, like walking in, you have this, oh man, it's like this big paper on one of the doors that shows the statistics of like relieved depression, relieved anxiety, relieved suicide, like all these statistics, and it's all like insane rates. It's like The lowest is 50, but it goes up to like 80 or 90% for some of these.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it works fundamentally different in the brain than any other medications or modalities that we currently use for mental health. The only thing that looks similar in fMRIs is psilocybin, but it works on 2 different receptors. So it actually works differently, but that's the same basic principle. What psychedelics do is help those neural pathways turn back on, because after years of anxiety, depression, just living, just normal living, everybody knows we get stuck in those ruts. And what is that? That is neuro connections that have just become so good at firing. What wires together fires together. So it's like this loop. We get stuck in these loops. We get stuck in our patterns. And anybody can tell you that, you know, as much as you want to get out of your pattern, it's not easy. Like, your body is so good at being efficient that it turns everything else around it off. And so what does ketamine and other psychedelics do? They turn all those connections back on. And then one of the really cool things that's a relatively recent study that we figured out is then it bathes your brain in BDNF, which is brain derived neurogrowth factor, which is basically growth hormone for your brain. So people ask, oh, well, you're under the influence of ketamine. No wonder you're having these big insights. But then you ask, why do you feel them if the half-life of ketamine is, you know, about 6 hours? Why are you feeling it days later? It's no longer in your system. It's because that growth factor actually is helping those synapses stay on. And the more we can bathe that brain in those synapses, that's why we do it in this series, because we want to keep them on, you know, long term. And then from that new place, then you have to do the integrative work to move into that new pattern. So it's great that you've had this big aha moment, but now how do you restructure your life so that you're using that new pattern that you've now seen, you know, had insight about, now that you want to implement into your life? And that's when it's lasting.
Yeah. And we had some profound experiences too. Like, I know Megan, she's getting up. She was, I think it was either the 3rd or 4th infusion, something like that. Getting up super early, remotivated to get up and work out in the mornings, get back into the routine. I mean, it was pretty immediate, which was really cool. And I went in really just for the experience itself. And one of the most profound things that happened to me, which I had no clue this was even in there, was it was like the 5th infusion. I'm a big advocate of psychedelics, there's no question there. Obviously, in my past, it was more so recreationally, and then it's become more of a ceremonial type of thing now, whenever I do engage like psilocybin or something like that. Well, in my earlier days, there was one really, really intense bad trip I had with LSD. And I thought I kind of let it go, but I guess it went into my subconscious a little, because anytime I went back into a psychedelic experience, even in my more ceremonial ones nowadays, there's just this tiny little tension in the back of my head a little bit about that one really bad trip. Well, man, it was so crazy. And I didn't understand what happened in the infusion until weeks later, whenever we were out at the river, we engaged psilocybin mushrooms, we had a little ceremony out there. And so during the infusion, it took me to flashes of this bad trip years and years ago. And it was the weirdest thing. I was like, whoa, why am I seeing this? That's freaky. Like, flash of the bad trip, flash of the bad trip. And then it would like get pulled away. And I had no clue what that was. I just thought it was weird. And then a couple weeks later, that tension was gone. It literally, it's like, it's almost a spiritual component, man. I can't explain it. But the ketamine went into, found the neural pathways that I think were damaged in the subconscious areas of my brain that had that anxiety from that. And it was gone. I've never experienced zero anxiety on any aspect of the ceremony or anything now since that 5th infusion. Have you heard things like that? Can you speak on profound one-off things like that?
Oh yeah. Well, one of the other interesting things is how ketamine works with the glutamate system. And glutamate is actually one of the most powerful neurotransmitters for your memory. And hopefully this is not a surprise to everybody. Your memory is not correct. Your memory is not right. It is colored with all kinds of things. And most people remember things incorrectly because you're remembering them in a state. And then every time you re-remember them and access that, then you're putting that new state on top of it. And so there's a lot of things in there. And what it does is when it increases that glutamate, it actually helps you to reprogram memories. And so that's what they think is happening with PTSD and why it works so well to deal with deep-seated trauma for people, is because it really allows your brain to re-experience trauma in a different way so that then it can process those emotions and literally rid them in your nervous system. Because it's not only the memory, it's the memory linked into that neurosystem response of that fight or flight that's creating those issues with people. Even that mild one for you, there was a little bit of PTSD in there about that LSD trip that created a tension response, which, you know, is super normal for any kind of traumatic response. Right. But what it allows you to do is then re-experience that, process that emotion, so then you're no longer having reactions. And then you can respond as opposed to react. And so the triggering for most people drops significantly around trauma.
That's awesome. Wow, that's huge. Yeah, PTSD, that was another big one I saw on this chart that you deal with so well. Can you speak on the spiritual components of it? Because there's been so many profound experiences there. What kind of spiritual experiences or components are there to ketamine that you've experienced?
Yeah, it's really interesting because, you know, ketamine therapy clinics are very different. There's a number of different ways it's administered. And some people think of it just as a drug, and we're going to give you the drug and it works in your brain this way, and that's it. We're not really going to deal with dissociation or psychedelic or spiritual aspect to it. And, you know, because of our background, that was just not how we experienced it, you know, and we really do believe in the spiritual aspect of it, and the spirituality is healing for people.
Absolutely.
And the thing that most people feel, you know, the first one for many is like a very, we call it shaking hands with a drug. It's a relatively low dose. It's based on your weight. It's for everybody to get a feel of what's about to occur. And that for many people is just a giant flood of gratitude and a sense of connection. And that's what so many people are missing now, especially with COVID. Oh, yeah. Everybody just feels so disconnected. And that disconnection, of course, first starts with self and then filters out into everything. You know, disconnection to the earth, disconnection to you know, those that are alive and those that are on the other side, disconnection to all those different things. And so that's the first thing that most people feel spiritually is just, God, I just feel so grateful and I feel so connected. And this is all the same. You know, it's that sameness that you finally get to feel. That's awesome. And then as we step up, what we're looking for with most patients, this isn't with everybody, but we really are looking for patients to dissociate. And what that is, it's the feeling of leaving your body. And for many people, that looks like different things. For some people, it looks like a portal. For some people, that looks like a giant hole in the ground. For some people, that looks like outer space.
It was like space for me. It was like space. Sounds crazy, but I freaking saw outer space and I was there. It was the craziest thing.
Exactly. And for some people, you know, some people have a real, are good at surrender. Me, I'm really good at it. Like I'll nesty plunge into that and be like, yes, let's go. I don't care if I die. This will be awesome. And then I'll just tell you, that's not most people. Most people, it brings up a lot of fear because most people have a sense of control and want to keep that sense of control. And when you fully let go, but that control is also what's causing you to suffer. Because you're thinking you're controlling everything, but really you're holding on to nothing.
That's so powerful. That's so true.
Yeah. And so it's so powerful to allow people to tiptoe into that space of surrender and finally let go. And then to realize, and this is a conversation I have all the time, is like, I know it feels scary, but it will be the most free you will ever feel when you really can let go and be like, you know what, I'm not in control and I'm okay. And I trust the universe and I trust myself and I'm going to let go. And for many, that is the light switch. And what they say in the brain is what that really is almost doing is basically like a reboot of your system. And so it's basically rebooting your brain. So it's separating your front and back lobe. And what that does is it gets rid of completely of your ego. That's what you're feeling. When that's letting go, it's your ego, it's your story. Can you really freaking let go of the story arc that you've built of who you are and how you are and what you are and really just be? And most people, when they fall in, as scary as that is, they realize that it's all the same. Like I'm just in some place that, you know, like I've just, or I've been caught by something. Some people have a lot of that, like, oh, then I was so relaxed. I was able to fully relax, or I was floating, or I was just there and able to completely, you know, be without a body. And, you know, and people wake up from that and be like, what was that?
Right.
What was that? And then things feel different. And that's because I think you really have, there's power in the surrender, man. There's just a lot of power and lessons in that for most of us.
That's so true. That translates so well into life. It's so cool because this, similar to psychedelics, I found that there's so many aspects to the treatment and what you learn from the treatment that correlate to all these different aspects of your life. It really is a powerful life empowerment and healing tool is what I'm discovering more and more with ketamine.
And that's what that's one of the big things that when people ask, well, what's the difference between this and like standard mental health treatment? And I was like, this is my opinion. And this is totally my opinion. This is actually probably not the opinion of Illumma, but this is my opinion.
Okay.
My opinion is the Western mental health model is a victim mentality. It's your brain is broken. There's nothing you can do about it. You need to take this pill because your neurotransmitters are off. By the way, that science has been disproven like years ago and nobody's told anybody. Not to say that meds don't help people for short periods of time, but no study has been done over 6 months, just so everybody knows. There's literally 0 studies on SSRIs over 6 months. And most people are on them for years and are not managed. And so, but that's a problem. When you're going to somebody and they're the expert and they're saying, this is what's wrong with you. And the only way you can, you know, be okay is if you take this pill and then you'll be fine. It's just completely disempowering, because then how do you fix yourself? How do you get better? You know, and ketamine is just basically the polar opposite. And I'll say most of our patients are actually on medications while they come into treatment, which is completely fine. But what ketamine does is it shows you what's going on and then said, are you ready to deal with this? Are you ready to process this? Are you ready to work through this? Again, ketamine is a tool. It's going to show you a lot of stuff, but then you actually have to do the work. And we partner with life coaches and therapists and all kinds of different integration specialists that can help people work on whatever they're trying to go through. But it really is a drug of empowerment. And that is the difference for me. It's like the big aha that I hear over and over almost every day is this realization: I am the crux of my suffering, which is terrifying, but also the side of that is, if you are the crux of your suffering, you're also your own savior. That's and right. You can fix yourself and you can fix your brain and you can get better. And this reality that you think that you need to live where you're sick and you're sad and you're not doing well is an illusion that the things that you're doing are helping to create. And this is a tool that can help you break out of that. And some people then stay on their medication, some people wean off, but it's a mindset shift. It's, do you really believe you have the capacity to live and be a different person? And you get to own that. Either answer.
Yeah. You know? Yeah, that is awesome. I love it. And when it comes to integration seems to be like a consistency across the board with these plant medicines too. What kind of integration techniques do you usually advise for someone after their infusions?
Yeah, really dependent on the person, because we have a super, super wide range of population. I mean, we have people like straight from the hospital suicidation, you know, patients as young as 14 to 70-year-olds. And then people that are super high functioning CEOs who are coming and using it as breakthrough therapy, who are really like trying to, you know, look at it as the limitless pill and figure out where their creativity and where their blocks are. So those are like such a wide range. So the biggest thing that I always say to people is, I don't care what your integration looks like, but we have to come up with a plan. So for many who feel comfortable in the Western mental health model, that looks like cognitive behavioral therapy. EMDR is an absolutely amazing adjunct therapy to this, since this really opens you up and taps you into your emotions. EMDR is really good, especially if you have trauma, to then process even deeper. EMDR works very similarly on the brain as ketamine. It just takes a little longer. So partnering these will work really well. You know, some people just do normal talk therapy. And then I have, you know, on our higher functioning side, we have life coaches and breakthrough coaches that work with people. I also am really big on any kind of somatic therapy that people like to do. We have a lot of people that turn to art as part of their integration plan. I do love art. I don't think it's the only integration plan you can have, though. I think a lot of times you need to actually talk through, or at least move through stuff with people. And so it's not for me to decide what that looks like, but it's, you know, I want everybody to have kind of a plan in place so that we know where we're going, because things will come up. Ketamine is what I call an emotional unpacker, especially if you're an emotional suppressor like me, who like, I don't like bad feelings. We'll just act like they never happened.
Right.
We'll just move past them, blah, blah, blah. And then interestingly, when I did my ketamine infusions, I cried for almost a week between my second and third infusion, almost every single day.
All that was just coming up.
It was just, and it wasn't anything specific. I mean, it was grief and sadness, and, you know, and I could, you know, I journaled and wrote about it. I think journaling and writing is unbelievable for ketamine processing. One of the things that we do here is, if you're coming out in infusion, if you work with a therapist outside of our clinic, we'll take notes for you if things come up, because ketamine is your subconscious. So it feels very dreamlike. And so sometimes it's important to kind of get that information out as soon as you come out so that you remember it. And so we can take notes for you, and then you can share them with your therapist or your coach afterward to really work on them.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, what's in the future for Illumma? You got this background. You've been personal training. You've been a chef, and now you're going with that mindset and spirituality. Like, you kind of got everything there. What's the future look like for what you're creating, the direction you're trying to go?
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to create a holistic mental health, basically, facility. Ketamine is just the legal thing that we have right now. You know, our big goal is to work with MAPS and try to get into the next phase of MDMA studies, and then hopefully psilocybin, and then who knows what. We also have added some practitioners onto the other side of our building. So we have this really amazing acupuncturist. She's also a Chinese medicine doctor, and she does cupping and some body work. She's been an amazing adjunct. So you can come in now. You can say you're really riled up. She can do a pre-treatment on you, you know, get you back into your parasympathetic nervous system, drop you down, put some needles in your ears, and like get you really ready. We also have a nurse practitioner who works on hormone and sexual health. So kind of looking at the body and making sure everything's functioning properly. And so I think just adding on more things like that so that people have kind of a one-stop shop to really care for themselves on all levels. That's
awesome. We have a close friend that's going to be moving to Austin. She was a nurse in nurse in Michigan. She actually used to be the person that put the ketamine IVs in. I have to connect you with her. She's looking for an opportunity. So
always on the hunt for good people. Yeah.
Right.
It's a different business. So trying to find somebody that's medically trained,
right,
but spiritually minded is a really interesting dichotomy that usually doesn't go together.
Western side, yeah, I bet. That's got to be that's got to be interesting interviews.
Yeah, it
Um,
definitely is that.
where can I'm gonna put all your links and everything everywhere we post this, but I mean, if you want to speak to it for people that are just listening, where's the best place someone can reach you? Also, on a side note, Megan and I had such an awesome experience. They were so welcoming, warm. It was really profound for both of us. I had no clue. I had suppressed a bit of PTSD from a trip. Megan just was waking up earlier, more motivation. I mean, it was really profound. So we personally couldn't recommend it enough. But where can they find you?
Yeah, I think the easiest place to start is our website. It's www.illumma, which is ILLUMMA.com. And on there, there's a really quick contact us form. The process is really easy. You fill out that form. We'll have you fill out some online paperwork, which takes maybe 10 to 15 minutes. You'll have a phone consultation with our nurse practitioner, which is about 20 or 30 minutes. And then from there, we can get you scheduled. So that whole process, we can usually get you in within three to 4 days at the most. And so the process is real easy and seamless. I know some people are a little anxious right now because of COVID, but we take super extra precautions. We're already a medical clinic, so we're already used to being super sterile and clean, but we got N95s, we do temperature checks, we do e-check-in, so we know everybody's free and clear. And we've been open since March and have yet to have one incident of anybody sick or any of our staff getting sick or anybody even being quarantined. So we're taking extra precautions. You're in a room by yourself. It's a real relaxing environment. And it's just really, I mean, it's a game changer. Whether you're struggling currently, have struggled in the past, or really just looking for something to kind of take you to that next level, it's an amazing thing that is readily accessible and super safe and in a really easy environment. The other thing that's really nice for those tiptoeing into the psychedelic space is you're in and out in 90 minutes. So there's,
that is so true. When you surrender, you're like, you know
it's
what?
completely legal. It's completely legal. You don't have to worry about that. And it's real fast and it's really effective. So it's great.
Yeah, and if anyone out there even knows anyone that's struggling, I would pass this specific podcast on and pass the info on to them. Everyone, I feel like either is struggling or knows someone that is struggling, and you never know, right? This all could be happening for that reason, so they can hear about Illumma, go and really have a profound experience. One thing I'll say that we love, because obviously going into any kind of experience, there's a little anxiety. We got in, we sat down, and the vibe was awesome. We got the essential oils, and then you have affirmation cards right in the front. And we pulled an affirmation card, and it was like, you're in the right place at the right time. It was awesome. So I love that setup. That was great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on with us. Anytime
you're welcome.
We ask one last question before we leave.
Okay.
And that's, if you could leave the world with one message, what would it be?
Stop asking if you're right and start asking if you're helping.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. I love that.
I think right now we got a lot of people standing and I'm right. And not a lot of people asking empathetically, am I helping the situation? And so I just think more of us can bring a lot more grace and empathy, that everybody is doing their best and you might not agree with them, but you know, we're all on our own path and we have far more in common than we have, you know, not in common. So I just think grace and empathy is what we need right now.
Well said. Thank you so much again for coming on with us. We loved meeting you. We've loved our experience, so I can't wait to get you out to our community. So keep doing the great work of healing people. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much for having me.
For sure. Happy healing.
Bye.